Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to answer the question for Common Test October 2018, question 2, and this is for FAR210. So let's start. The first question, which is question 2A, the MASB Conceptual Framework for Financial Reporting sets out the concepts that underlie the preparation and presentation of financial statement. That was a statement being given. One of the purposes of the conceptual framework is to assist the MASB in developing future MFRS. That is in the case of Malaysia. You are asked to state other three purposes of the conceptual framework. These are the purposes of the conceptual framework that is here, that you can see here, where the first one is to assist the board, right, to develop MFRS standards that are consistent based on the consistent concept. The second one is to assist preparer to develop consistent accounting practice, and that is when no standard applies, as well as allowing choice of accounting policy when standard allows choice, so they can assist the preparer and also to assist other parties, all other parties, to understand and interpret the standards better. That is the purposes of the conceptual framework. The next one is the question here is on qualitative characteristic. If you read the question, where the conceptual framework for financial reporting identify two fundamental qualitative characteristic. The first one is relevant, the second one is faithful representation. You are asked to explain relevant. So when you're asked to explain relevance, you need to just explain relevance, also mentioning about the ingredients of relevance. So the explanation, you should mention that how the information affects or capable of making difference to the decision making process of the users, and they are considered relevant if they influences the user's decision making. And what is relevant means it should be able to help users to evaluate past, present, and future events. So if you look at the marks here, it is for 3 marks. So for 3 marks, normally for 3 points. So here, help users to evaluate past, present, and future. Past, present, future. And also to confirm the evaluation, or maybe to correct their past evaluation. So financial information is considered relevant if it has the predictive value and confirmatory value, as well as also one more important thing is it is about having this criteria of materiality and also materiality. So what you see that only 3 points are needed, but somehow these are the points that are accepted. Information are considered relevant is if the information has predictive value. Yeah, predictive value where it can be used to predict future outcomes, and it is also relevant when it has confirmatory value, where it can confirm or changes our evaluation, our previous evaluation, as well as the information is also material. Materiality of an item are normally an important consideration to decide whether it is relevant or not, if omitting or misstating it could influence users' decision making. So information will be considered relevant if, let's say, there is an amount that are very material being omitted, or let's say sales are being misstated, right, for example, and that is an important information that could influence users' decision making. So any 3 points will give you 3 marks. Next is to define asset and equity. So this is an easy question, asset and equity, just as what given in the conceptual framework. And MASB conceptual framework is equivalent to the IASB conceptual framework for financial reporting. That is a document that were the one of the IASB made for Malaysian use, and we have the word MASB in front. Okay, the first definition, you need to mention about present economic resources control as a result of past event. You can see that I highlight the important terms there. An economic resource is a right, where that right gives you the potential to produce economic benefits, the potential of the entity using the asset to produce economic benefits. You don't have to explain in detail, just give the definition. Now is the second definition on equity. Equity is simply the difference between assets and liabilities. But here is what you call residual interest in the asset after deducting the liabilities. Next one is the part D of the question, where you have a company, a Syarikat Majuria, and Syarikat Majuria here is the reporting entity. And that's a reporting entity started its business that was on 1st of January 2018, and on 1st of February the company bought inventories of 5,000. So the inventories that were bought were 5,000, and that was actually a purchase of inventory where it was being delivered the next day. So the inventories total is 5,000. However, the company only paid 10% of the balance. So 10% is being paid, so meaning that this is a cash purchase. And another 90%, you are informed only 10% were being paid upon the delivery of the inventory. So inventory was delivered when it was being delivered the next day. The next day means it is somewhere on 2nd of January 2018. Sorry, 2nd of February 2018, because the transaction took place here. This is just the date the company started the business. So this is the date, but the next day is 2nd of February. So 90% is still unpaid, or being amount that is being owed by the reporting entity Syarikat Majuria. Here in this question, you are not informed what is the other entity, or what are the other creditors or the supplier's name. So don't worry about that. And here you are informed that it needs to be paid in 30 days time. So it need to be paid somewhere on 3rd of March. So meaning that there is a credit purchase. Journal entry wise, this is where you debit the purchase and you will credit accounts payable. That is for the amount 90%, which is 4,500. This is 5,000 times 90% unpaid, right? So this is the amount that have give rise to a liability. So that the question asks you whether or not the amount owed by Syarikat Majuria, which refers to this 4,500 amount, this one 4,500, here amount owed, that is 90%, 4,500. The one that is paid is 500. This one was not yet paid. So that is the issue of whether that amount is a liability. The second one is to explain the recognition criteria. What are the recognition criteria for liability? For 4 marks, you are going to go and justify whether the amount owing by Syarikat Majuria is a liability. This is not referring to the 5,000 but the 4,590% that was remain unpaid and must be settled within 30 days. So let us look at the explanation of whether the amount owed by Syarikat Majuria is a liability. Let us first recall or revise the definition of a liability. Yeah. So the definition of liability from the conceptual framework. A liability is a present obligation of the entity to transfer economic benefit. So present obligation to transfer economic benefit. So this is the first one. This is the second one. There are three things actually here. 1, 2, and 3. Right? And it is as a result of past event. So let's see whether or not it is a liability by checking the criteria of liability. Is it being met or not by the company? So here we start with the present obligation. What is a present obligation? The entity has a present obligation since the company did not make a full payment yet on the date of the purchase of the inventories, and the amount that is giving rise to the present obligation is the credit purchase amount that was 4,500. The next one is, why does this present obligation exist? It exists as a result of past events. So when was the past event? On the date that the company, Syarikat Majuria, the reporting entity, received the inventories purchased from the supplier. Remember, it was being received one day later. So on 2nd of February, there is a past event. The third one is that because there was a present obligation as a result of past event, where you have already received the inventories that we purchased, so the obligation by Syarikat Majuria is to pay to the accounts payable or the supplier an economic resource. So they have the obligation to transfer an economic resource, and that was by Majuria to transfer the cash outflow of 4,500. Remember, cash is an example of an economic resource because cash is also an asset, and you are paying that for the item purchase. Your item purchase is the inventory. The next one, so you need to go and inform or check whether it is a liability, then give the reasons or the justification based on the guidance given by the conceptual framework definition of liability, then make your conclusion. So this is the conclusion. Therefore, the amount owed of 4,500 by Syarikat Majuria is a liability, and this one should be shown in the financial statement of Syarikat Majuria under current liabilities as accounts payable, as long as it is not yet paid, and that is a liability to the reporting entity Syarikat Majuria as it satisfies the criteria of a liability. That was for 4 marks. Next is the recognition criteria of a liability. According to the conceptual framework, and elements of financial statement, either asset, liabilities, equity, income, or expenses, the criteria is met, yeah, only if the items meets the definition. So here the liability should meet the definition of what is the liability. So the recognition criteria is when it meets the definition. We already checked the definition, it met the definition, and when the liability provide users of the financial statement with useful information in line with relevance and faithful representation. Because this is 2 marks, you won't go into detail of explaining relevance and faithful representation within the context of recognition criteria. Okay, that's it for this video. I'll see you when I will see you, and thank you for watching. I'll see you again in the next video. Until then, thank you and Assalamualaikum. Have a nice day ahead.